Well, how are you, sir?
I've been good, just been jumping around. I mean, just I'm working on grad school assignments and just getting ahead on things and keep on reading. It's
Awesome.
it's been fun for me. Just I mean, after having just 3 games this week, and yeah, I mean like one of them was a middle school game in double overtime on Tuesday
What?
night.
Wow.
What?
You obviously don't know the rules of officiating. There is no overtime. Rule number 1.
You don't
No
let
overtime.
overtime. No
There's
overtime.
no
The-
such thing
like-
as overtime.
Like these players just miss so many free throws.
So middle
Rule
school for you,
number
Will,
1.
7th, 8th grade?
Yes.
Wow. Was
And I
it
had-
competitive though?
It's some of it's competitive, some of it's not. I had one middle school game on Thursday where one team got fouled 7 times in the first quarter, and they were only up like 4 points, maybe 4-0.
Will, you're calling too
Wow.
many fouls, dude.
I'm not.
You can't take the POEs too literally in the junior high. Junior high.
It wasn't even any touch ones. It was just a bunch of shooting fouls.
Okay. Remember, sometimes it's about sometimes it's more about education than officiating.
Yeah. At that level.
Yes, at that level.
At that level.
Rick, how goes it? How you doing, sir? That was a great comment you had there.
Good, man. Everything all good?
Good. Can't complain. Can't complain. Anthony, how goes it?
Anthony, can we hear Anthony tonight?
Unmute. You got to unmute.
Yep, I'm
Whoa.
well. How's everybody?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
We got a good connection to you this week. Awesome. Good connection. John, Mr. AR. John, I'm going to call you John AR from now on. I just want you to let you know that.
Gone.
Nice.
Good, good.
Becky's in the house. Kansas. K-State is in the house. How'd you guys do
Jorge
this?
stayed in the house.
Alicia.
Yep, doing good.
Great. Mr. Bailey.
Hey, what's up?
You scared me, Justin. That beard's got to go, man. The season started. That beard's got to go, brother.
It's the last week.
He is holding on,
Boy,
isn't
how you
he?
doing, Sal?
He's holding on, isn't he?
He's
Hey, what's
holding
up?
on. He's
How's
holding on.
everything, man?
Everything's good, Shy. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us, brother. We appreciate your time.
All
All right, so we had a lot of good questions. We had a lot of good chatter in the chat room this week in Google. Some in connection to my game, some in connection to issues with questions. So let's start with that. I know Alicia had a couple, if I'm not mistaken, and Becky even agreed with some of Alicia's points. I think I covered them, but if not, let's discuss. Alicia, go ahead.
Well, mine was whether or not the thrower in could jump and land back down out of bounds. And it happened to me 2 years ago in a JV game. And I let it go because of the, there's no travel, restriction, all that is off on the inbounder. And I just know that I got chewed out really bad. And
by who?
And I said,
who?
By the coach, it's travel. And I said, no, coach, it's not a travel. And I just wanted to clarify. That was all.
Well, that's a great question. And obviously that coach doesn't know the rules,
Right.
right?
Yep.
So,
I've asked other, officials, I've asked our rules interpreter, and
Oh boy.
probably 90% says yes, that they can jump. And then, an official here or there will say, no, they can't. Especially when, you hand the ball to the girl and you say, some people will say, hold your spot. And I'm thinking, if I'm saying hold your spot, that means she has to hold her spot. She can't move anywhere.
That's not the correct terminology.
I always ask, especially when you're playing, the higher level varsity games or the college, I don't say anything to the thrower in where they are. But, the younger levels, you were just saying, sometimes you have to teach. I make sure that they're back from that line. There's no chance that they're going to take a step on that line, especially, 7th, 8th, 9th graders, in a little
Well-
gym. I always try to push people back, the thrower in, just to make sure that if she takes a step forward to release the ball,
Mhm.
she doesn't step on the line.
Yep.
And I always try
Remember,
to get the
Lisa-
girls that are defending, give a little space and make sure you can't come across this line, to be a little bit, game management. So you don't have to call that delay. You don't have to, slow things down.
Just really quick, Alicia, remember, the thrower in can step on the line,
Yes, not
all
over
right?
it.
They cannot step over it,
Right, yep.
all right? So that's, and it's great that you still keep them away from the line. Keep them, because it's great that they get that practice in at that age, right? Let's keep them away from it. But we know, right, if they step on it, they're
That's
still
still
considered out of
Out of
bounds.
bounds. Yep, thank you.
Right,
Yep,
so they haven't violated. Once they step a little, their little pinky toe goes over that line, then they've violated.
right.
All right, but again, your practice in keeping them further back away from the line is great. One thing, especially on the lower level, I like to say, and I tell them, and it's like you said, I don't say hold the spot, I'll just say spot.
Okay.
Right? I can't sit there and give them the whole rule, because if I try to define it, that's going to take time in the game. We want the game to keep moving. But I'll tell them spot throw in, this is your spot. And the defenders, again, especially on the lower level, I'll say, pretend like alright. Let's go.
Now a long time official, and he said that basically you're in a phone booth, which has no depth. So you can't go through the door of the phone booth, but you're in the phone booth. You can go back as far as you want, but you can't come out of it until you throw the ball.
Like it.
So when I talk to coaches, I tell them, look, as long as they're in that phone booth and they don't step over that line, they're good. And the coaches don't, I'm like, what they do in that phone booth is their own business, and I ain't going there.
That's a good analogy. So, Steve, I'm gonna let you take the introduction.
What's that?
I was saying, Jim, I was gonna let Jim introduce our special guest for the evening.
Oh, great. How do you get in?
I let him in.
Oh, great.
Hi, John.
Hello. How's everybody?
We're awesome.
Hello, John.
Hey, Jim.
Okay, so you can see our special guest here, John Levinson, NCAA Women's Basketball Secretary, Rules Editor, coordinator of a number of conferences at the Division I, II, and III levels. John, thank you for joining us tonight on WCBOO.
You're welcome. I'm very happy to be here, because the fact that I'm here means I'm in my house and I'm
Yes.
not sitting behind the wheel, stuck in traffic, driving home from Baltimore. I'm happy to be sitting in a comfortable chair, welcomed by my dogs, and it's all good.
I thought you might have taken a close trip to Caldwell today, John.
No, this was I was on a road. Listen, if you're going to start the season, you may as well start big. I went on a road trip to 2 schools that I've never been to before, and made an appearance. And yes, weekends are for far trips.
Got it.
So, Jimmy, do you want to introduce somebody? You want me to introduce and say what he's going to talk about, or?
Yeah. You've been doing this for the entire duration of your share, so you keep going.
Okay, so WCBOO class, John Levinson, he's there, as Jimmy said, he's our Secretary Rules Editor. He is the man. He writes the rule books. Great friend of WCBOO's, so we are super excited to have him on tonight. let's just say not everybody gets to have John Levinson like we do. So we are really happy to have him, and we appreciate everything he does for us. As we told you guys last week, that we do not have replay on the WCBOO University course yet, so which is Rule 11. And so John, since he wrote the rule, and he knows it better than anybody, he is going to explain it to us and go over it. And hopefully, did you get questions, Carl, already for them?
There was a couple, but there was a couple I already
Okay.
fielded in the chat room.
Okay.
And there's a couple that
Okay,
I think we can discuss. You know, we want John to really dive into replay
Okay.
and focus on that. That's okay.
okay. So with further ado, John, you're on your way. I did make you a co-host, so you have sharing privileges as well.
Okay, well,
And just really quick, I'm sorry to cut you off, John. If anybody has questions, just put them in the chat room while John is talking, and we'll get to those questions at a later time. If you want to just direct them to me or Sherry, we'll make sure John gets them so he can answer them.
and you know what might be useful, because usually I'm the king of the PowerPoint, but I have to be honest, I don't have a PowerPoint.
What?
Yes, I know. You're all terribly disappointed.
Should I bring yours up? I don't know if I could find it. No.
Well, but you know what? What I'd rather do is I'm actually gonna pull up the rule book,
Okay.
which might be a better place to work from. So let me, here we go. So let's share screen. So, and of course, I can't see can you guys see the rule book?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
All right, so let's get to Rule 11. So one of the things that I'd like to start with is, for those of you who are just delving into this rule, and this is brand new for you, you're very lucky, because this rule was completely rewritten from Section 1, Article 1 till the end. And one of the reasons why was because in the old rule book, things weren't necessarily in a logical order, and there were certain things that were linked, like they would be in the same section, but they really had nothing to do with each other. So this was one of my summer projects, was to rewrite this rule, and I should say off season, to rewrite this rule and try to make it better and try to make it a little bit more user friendly. Like, for example, we didn't always say what time frame officials had to review pieces. We just expected officials to know that certain reviews fell under correctable error, certain had their own time, certain reviews had their own time frame, that you had to go to another place in the rule book to find, like timing mistakes, that you had to go look in Rule 5 for games without replay to determine what your time frame was the correct, and then apply it to the situation of Rule 11 when you're using replay. So one of the things that I thought was important with this rule was to give officials more specific information relative to how long do you have, like, how do you administer these rules? How do you apply them? So have you guys covered rules 9 and 10 yet in WCBOO? Okay, so
Not really.
all right, and that's okay, because I'm sure the people on the call they've thumbed through their rule book a little bit, and they've maybe snuck a peek at the parts that are yet to come. And so what, Sherry?
Yeah, and so also the majority of them are already officials. So They do have
Okay.
knowledge of, yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that I thought was important was to take the structure from 9 and 10, where you say what a travel is, and then in the bold print you have the penalty. So to take that mentality and apply it to Rule 11, I thought was important, and I thought officials would like that, because it spells everything out. So what is replay? Replay is any device or system, because if you watch games on TV, you see this big monitor has DV Sport plastered on it, which costs a heck of a lot of money. Not everybody can afford DV Sport, and by the way, it's not like a one-time purchase. Like you buy your computer and you pay, and you go to the store, you pay on your credit card for your new laptop, like it's yours. Replay systems don't work that way. You're paying every year because they're going to come out with upgrades. And unlike Microsoft and Apple, who they give you the operating system for free, well, I know Apple does. I can't speak for Windows. I thought they did. Like, you pay every year for these replay systems. So not everybody can afford that. And there are different systems. There's DV Sport, there's Synergy, there's Wing Warp. But a replay system could be as simple as an individual designated to sit courtside, anywhere between 3 and 12 feet of the playing court. They could have an iPhone. I could take my iPhone and go like this and film the game, and that would be a legal replay system. Or do the same thing with my iPad. So replay doesn't have to be anything fancy. Now, I don't know how much you're going to get off my phone. You may not get what you want, but by rule, that would be a legal replay system. And our standard of proof is clear and conclusive evidence. So when officials go to replay, they shouldn't, often they get wrapped around the axle. They'll look at a play like 30 times, and I'm exaggerating just a little bit, but they'll look at it, they'll frame by frame it. And when you run plays in slow motion, particularly contact plays, they look worse than they really are. So you have to be, when using replay, you're not looking for the needle in the haystack. You're looking for the cow on top of the haystack. You're looking for something that is so clear and conclusive and obvious to change your ruling. Because most coaches, if you talk to the coaches on the rules committee, they believe officials do a very good job at what they do, and that they don't make a lot of mistakes. So replay shouldn't be a crutch for officials. It should be an add-on. If you make a ruling, let's say on a foul, and you decide that it's an intentional foul right away, you should have the courage of your conviction to make that ruling, instead of, I'm going to call personal foul because I can go to replay and I can look at it. If you know it's an intentional foul, call it an intentional foul. And now if a coach, because you have replay, the coach can appeal that ruling. If the coach wants to risk the timeout, to appeal, to have you look at the play on replay and determine whether you were right or not, I think that's on them. But I think officials do a very good job. When they see a play and they make a ruling, they're right way more often than they're not. So when we talk about this equipment, one of our new rules is permitting officials to use a stopwatch or a timeline that's embedded in the system, to determine, like, if you have a timing mistake, if you need to fix the shot clock or the game clock, how much time elapsed. That a lot of these systems have embedded devices that you can use. Previously, you had to use a handheld stopwatch. Well, I don't know about you, but if you tried to time something 3 times on a stopwatch, maybe 2 out of the 3 you'd actually time it with the exact same time. there's always that margin for error. And this should eliminate margin for error. And it also should get the end result quicker. That it shouldn't take, 2.5 minutes to deal with a timing mistake. You might be able to get it done in under a minute. So again, it should help with pace of play. Now there are situations where replay use is required. And I thought, in the old book, this was the last thing that was in the replay rule, when you had to use it, which really made no sense to me. Think about it. As an official, don't you want to know the things you have to do before the things you're allowed to do? Like, doesn't, I thought that made more sense. And I did have, for full disclosure, like, I did not do these edits on my own. I had 4 people who I trust. First of all, I trust that they wouldn't go blabbing what I was working on, but also that I trust their rules knowledge or their language knowledge. Because while I'm an English minor, you're not going to go find me, breaking down Shakespeare. That's just not going to happen. So I utilized people who would be able to help with this project. So mandatory use is first. Officials have to go at the end of a quarter or the end of a period to determine whether a shot was released in time. And I'm not going to use rule book speak. I'm going to try and speak like not me. On our call, I'm going to try and I'm going to try and loosen up. Got the collar undone, so I'm going to try and be a little looser with some terminology. So don't be mad at me for it. But whether a shot was released before zeros on the game clock, whether a shot clock violation occurred before zeros on the game clock, and whether a foul occurred before zeros on the game clock. For those situations, officials have to go. So those are 3 scenarios where we're talking about end of quarter, end of overtime, that officials, they have no choice. They have to go. And let's say it's the shots released. Was the shot released before zeros? Well, it used to be that officials would only go if those points mattered. Did it flip the score and we have a winner, or did it lead to overtime? Now, and again, the concern, this first came out as an interpretation and then went into the rule book. The concern, let's be honest, people gamble on sports. And what we did not want was anybody questioning the integrity of the coaches, the players, or the officials regarding these replay reviews, because there'd be some game where the spread, I just used that word, sorry, but like the spread was maybe 5 points, and now this basket, does it count, does it not count, may impact who wins bets and who loses bets. And then of course, the question always leads to, well, did the referee have money on the game, which is completely fictitious. But to take that out, we now go review anything. And it could be it doesn't have to be a very long review. In a 20-point game, it shouldn't be a very long review. Get the angle you need. Was the ball still in the shooter's hand when zero's on the clock, or the LED lights if you can't see the clock? And then make your decision. Now, think about what I just said. We use zeros. That is the first thing we use, is zeros. But sometimes you can't see the game clock. So the next thing we go to is the red light behind the white box on the backboard, or red LED lights that are around the perimeter of the backboard. Now, maybe the angle of the camera doesn't give you that either. So we've permitted for the last couple of years to have a red light or red LED lights on the scorer's table, because maybe you catch that light. Now, all these things are supposed to be synchronized, and we all hope they are, I'm sure there's some places where they may not be. The last thing that officials would use, you can't see zeros on the clock. You can't see the red light or red LED lights on the backboard. Let's say they don't have, because it's optional, to have LED lights or a red light on the scores table. Then you go to the horn. Well, that's nice, except for one thing. Most replay systems don't have audio. So, for all the technology that we have, you could go, like it's your first replay game, and you're there with your R because you were the center and you're the one who either counted the wiped it out, and you go to replay and you're all excited, like I'm going to replay, and you're looking at every angle they give you and none of them show you what you need, which is why you always have to make a ruling on the court. You can't be the center and saying, oh, please lead, rotate so I can be the trail and I don't have to worry about the last second shot. Please. And then the lead doesn't rotate for, because the ball doesn't dictate the rotation. And now it's really close and you're responsible regardless of where the ball is. Now, it may not be in your primary area. You may need to get help from a partner, but you as a crew have to make a decision whether that goal counts or not before you can even go to replay. Because if you don't have clear and conclusive evidence on replay to change the ruling, you have to go with the ruling on the floor, which means you have to make one. You can't say, we're going to go look, and then not tell anybody. There has to be something first, and then we can go. Then we go to replay. Now, I want to talk about the foul, because this is important, and this was never in the replay rule. For the majority of the game, a foul occurs when you say it did. So here I am John the ref. I am working a game. I'm with Carl and Sherry. Poor Carl and poor Sherry. They're stuck with me. I can't run. I'm overweight. I can't run, and I haven't blown a whistle in 8 years. But they're stuck with me today. Whenever any one of the three of us sees a foul, not when we see the contact, because remember, just because there's contact doesn't mean it's automatically illegal. We need to see what the impact of that contact is. Once we see that this contact is illegal, we blow our whistle and put our fist in the air. How are my mechanics? Are they pretty good? I still got it, right? Excellent. That's when a foul occurs for the entire game, except, and I don't like exceptions, but these are two necessary exceptions. And the first one involves whether a foul was committed before the reading of zeros on the game clock at the end of a quarter or overtime. At that time, foul versus zeros, when you go to replay, you determine when the foul occurred based on the illegal contact. So when you see the illegal contact, if there's still time on the game clock, you're going to put that time back on the game clock. And if time expired, then you will ignore the illegal contact unless it's intentional or disqualifying. So that is one of two exceptions for when a foul occurs. The other one, which is jumping ahead, is whether a foul was committed before shot clock violation. And the reason why we have these two exceptions is because we're dealing with time. We're dealing with a clock, and we really need to be as accurate as we can when we're talking about time. So, sometimes plays happen at the end of a quarter where your whistle is as quick as it can be, but the whistle may be just after the quarter ended, but the contact was before, the illegal contact was before zeros on the game clock. So we're trying to get that piece right without like micromanaging every single foul that occurs in a game. Okay. Now, the only other time that officials, besides the 3 zeros scenarios, the only other time that officials are required to use replay is to determine whether a fight occurred. And you may know a fight occurred. Like, you may not need replay to determine whether a fight occurred, because when people are running all over the place, like swinging fists and arms and things, I think we know a fight occurred. But, you know, sometimes you got to get the license plates of all these cars that are banging into each other. So you can use replay to determine who participated in the fight and or who left the bench or the substitution area, because they're not allowed to do that. But, you know, we're dealing with, you know, 18 to 22-year-olds. They tend to be a little impulsive and or maybe a lot impulsive. So you have replay as a tool there to be able to help you with that. So that's mandatory use. Every other possibility for the use of replay is permissive. You're allowed to use it. Now, sometimes we let you use it at any time during the game. And then sometimes we restrict when you can use it. Now, I thought it was important to separate those out. To have, you know, in the old book, all the fouls were together, all the violations were together, all the timing was together. Like, but it didn't make sense, because you'd stick in okay, in the last 2 minutes of the game, would just like all of a sudden appear out of nowhere. So I thought it would be better and would help officials remember better if I took the permissible use and said, okay, here's when you can use it at any time during the game. And for anybody who's looked in the old book, I kept the same order. I didn't change the order of any of these, because sometimes familiar, like we're all you know, creatures of habit. I, for one, hate change. Like, I am not a fan of change. And, you know, if you change the formula of like my favorite coffee cake, I'm not going to be happy. You know, so I like things, you know, doesn't mean I'm opposed to all change, but like the personal things, I get uncomfortable with that. And I thought it would be helpful for officials to kind of keep the same order with things. Now, if you look at the first 4, determine who shall attempt free throws when there's uncertainty, determine whether a player fouled on their unsuccessful field goal try shall attempt 2 or free throws when they're fouled so close to the line that, you know what, you may not be able to pick everything up. You may not be able to get the feet, and then worry about a defender who's coming or contesting the shot. Whether a wrong player is permitted to attempt free throws, which should never happen. If as officials, we use our mechanics, which is, if you call a foul, as soon as you've called the foul, one of the next things you're going to do is you're going to say, that's my shooter. And make sure your partners hear you and see you. And listen, not everybody likes to say the number, because what they're afraid of is they'll go to the table and they will report the number of the player who's supposed to shoot the free throws, not the number of the player who committed the foul. So I understand that, because my brain could only keep a little bit of information in at a time anyway. I was one of those people. I'd be like, that's my shooter. If we do that, then 3-1C in Rule 11 will never happen, okay? And indeed, if we ever shoot free throws at the wrong end, again, like, should never happen. These things should never happen. But all 4 of those fall under correctable error. They all fall under our correctable error rule. So that's the time frame that officials have. Now, all of these occur when the ball is dead. So that means that our time frame is we must make a correction, which means we must review this on replay We need to, from that dead ball, we need the clock to, it's the first dead ball period after the game clock properly started. So if we stop play for a foul and we make a mistake, we have an error in A, B, C, and D, then once the ball becomes live and the game clock starts, the next dead ball, whether the clock stops or not, is immaterial. We've got until the next dead ball, like that's our boundary. We're in that dead ball period. We've got to get it. Because once the ball becomes live again, it's too late for us to correct. But if we communicate as a crew, we should never have a problem with A, B, C, and D. And we should maybe B, we go to replay for, but we should know who our shooter is. We shouldn't let the wrong player shoot free throws. And we should definitely never let them shoot at the wrong basket. So we've just eliminated 3 of the 4 just by what we do on the court. Now let's go to E through H, because now it gets to be a little bit more fun. Determine whether a successful try for goal was a 2 or 3 point attempt. So let's hold on to that one for a second. F, prevent or rectify a scoring mistake by the scorer. And one of the things that I want to try and do in 2 years is include bookkeeping. Because under our current rule, the only thing that a coach can appeal that officials can't use replay for is whether the AP arrow is correct or not. Now, I'm not so sure I really want the committee to expand that, because you may have to go back like a long ways to find the AP arrow, the AP situation. And if your scorer is on top of things, they'll have it in the book. And if you have a spare whistle in your pocket, and you keep, like, as you face the like tricks of the trade, you keep a spare whistle as you face the table, whatever direction the teams are going that has the arrow, put it in that pocket. Whether you want to use your front pocket or your back pocket. I used to use, I don't know how many of you have, like, if you ever gone to the pet store, like we have a lizard at home, my daughter's, but yeah, it's ours. And so this thing eats crickets. So every like 2 weeks, we have to go to PetSmart or Petco and buy like a dozen crickets for this lizard. So they put it in they get it in a plastic bag, and then they twist the top, and then they put these tiny little rubber bands on. So I got myself a whole bunch of those rubber bands, and I wear it on like my ring finger. So again, based on the direction of play as I face the table, I had a rubber band on my finger that, unless you really looked at my hands, you wouldn't know I had the thing on. And that's how I kept the AP arrow. So if I forgot it in my head, and by the way, there are only 2 teams. We should know which team has the AP arrow. That's something we should know in our head. But it's okay to have like a little helpful trick. We should know the arrow. There should never be a mistake. The table may point it the wrong way. You guys know, and if you see them point it the wrong way, then you get them to fix it. G, determine whether a score was erroneously counted or canceled per Rule 212(1)(e). So that's correctable error. And here's what I want to mention about that. That determining whether a score was erroneously counted or canceled by rule, it's not like, for example, if I call a foul, and it's act of shooting, players in the act of shooting, when I call the foul, the ball goes in the basket, and I don't count the basket, and nobody tells me and nobody says anything, that does not fall under erroneously counting or canceling a score. That falls under John's a blockhead because he didn't get this play right. But erroneously counted, if I ruled basket interference on the defense, okay, so I ruled that the defense committed basket interference, which means the offense is awarded points. and that doesn't happen, that is erroneously counting or canceling a goal. So that falls under correctable error, which means if we don't catch that until, like if that's the first quarter and we don't catch it till the third, we can't fix that. Now that's different from I rule defensive basket interference. I tell the scorer award 2 points, and the scorer doesn't write it down. That's a scoring mistake by the scorer. That may be corrected, including through the use of replay. That may be corrected up until the time that the officials either approve the score or all three officials leave the visual confines of the playing court. Okay. And then H, determine if the ball was released on a successful try for goal before the expiration of the shot clock period. Now, E, for those of you who are familiar, we don't go to replay right away. You know, was the basket worth 2 or 3? We go at the media timeout. So we go at the first quarter media, or if it's after the first quarter media, we go at the end of the first quarter. And the only time that we would fall under the correctable error window is when we've had the fourth quarter media timeout. Now, most officials, after the fourth quarter media, they go right away. Probably a good idea. We're late in the game. It may be a close game, and they want to make sure that they correct it within the window, so they go right away. So H, the committee changed to line up with E to make it similar, to address pace of play, because we're talking about either keeping points on the board or taking them off, or actually putting them back on. So in H, I go to shoot, and right near the release of that shot, the shot clock horn goes off. So long as we still have a media timeout, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, or we have the intermission after first, second, and third, the officials are not going to go to replay right away. The officials are going to signal the scorer to write the time down, and they will go at the media timeout. Only after the fourth quarter media, when this happens, the officials must stop play before the ball becomes live after the basket. So before it's at the disposal of the non-scoring team, and then they'll go look right away. And if the basket counts, beautiful. If they see that it is a shot clock violation, only when they go immediately after the fourth quarter media, only then, if they see that it was a shot clock violation, they will fix the game clock. First quarter, if they take the points off the board because it should have been a violation, that's all they're going to do. They're going to take the points off the board. They're not doing anything with the game clock. We're going to play. Are we okay? Am I getting too in the weeds with this? Carl, Sherry, Jim, you know I can get in the weeds, so don't let me get too deep.
Oh, you're good. You're good so far.
Keep going.
So let's go. Let's stay with permissive use. All right, officials are allowed to use replay to determine whether the game clock failed to start or stop properly, whether the game clock malfunctioned, whether the shot clock malfunctioned, or the shot clock operator made a mistake in either failing to start it properly, stop it properly, set it, or reset it. So with regard to like timing mistakes with the game clock, the time frame is exactly the same as it is if your game does not have replay. So either it must be corrected during the first dead ball and before the subsequent throw-in is touched inbounds or out of bounds by a player other than the thrower in, or when the game clock should have been continuously running before the second live ball. So okay, we have a play where I rule an out of bounds violation, and the game clock, 5 seconds came off the game clock. Okay. So we have that dead ball period, right? Now we have a throw in, because remember, this happens in the dead ball period. We've got to get this because the clock is stopped. We've got to get it before that throw in is touched. If I place it at the disposal and now somebody says, whoa, 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 the clock didn't stop. So long as that throw in hasn't been touched on the plane, it could be in the air, you can blow your whistle and fix. But once that throw in's touched, too late. It is too late. And you can't carry a timing mistake over from one quarter to another. So like the end of a quarter is really important to be clock aware. No one should have to tell you that a game clock failed to start or failed to stop. As an official, anytime you blow a whistle, you should peek to make sure that the clock stopped. And really, everybody should do that. Unless, obviously, unless you have like mayhem in front of you and you have a competitive matchup. But the person who blows the whistle, there's no reason why they can't peek at the clock to make sure that it stopped. And when you administer a throw in, so you're the one who's going to chop time in. Well, when you chop, take a peek at the clock and make sure it now starts. And if it does, and if you count to yourself 1001, if it didn't start within 1001, blow your whistle, have them take a second off the game clock and probably the shot clock too, and put the ball back in play. I don't need replay for that. If we are clock aware, there should not be any situations where we're not right on top of it. So I was at a game this afternoon that unfortunately we played 5 minutes of free basketball. And that's kind of why I was late. And we had a situation where after a made basket, the team inbounded the ball and the shot clock operator, instead of resetting to 30, reset to 20. So it went 20, 19, 18, and as it was going to 17, they reset to 30. And the crew didn't see this. Now, fortunately, this did not hurt the crew because the team ended up taking a really quick shot. But when I mentioned it to them after the game, none of them knew. None of them. And if you can master clocks, nothing bad will ever happen to you. If you can master your own clocks. Now, game clock malfunctions are different from shot clock malfunctions. A game clock malfunction, okay, you have to correct it in that quarter or overtime. So that malfunction could occur at 9:50 in the first quarter. You have until the quarter ends to be able to fix it. But a shot clock malfunction is no different than the operator failing to set or reset, start, stop the shot clock. It must be done in the shot clock period in which it occurred. And if you ever have an issue with let's say we're playing, there was an erroneous reset of the shot clock. Let's say my team shot the ball, and let's say it was an air ball, but the shot clock operator erroneously reset it. We get the rebound, so now it's going to reset to 20 because they thought it hit the ring. But it really should have been at 7. 10 seconds later, the defense commits a foul. And now it's like, whoa, 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 shot clock should not have reset. So we're able to use replay for that. You go to replay and you see, oh, wait a second. That shot clock period should have ended. Well, now, because this was a personal foul, we're going to take it away. We're going to take the personal foul away. We're going to set the game clock to the time at which the shot clock violation should have occurred, and we're going to give the other team the ball. Now, we can only take the foul away if it's personal. If it's technical, intentional, or disqualifying, those we can't ignore. So even though it occurred after the shot clock period had ended by rule, we are going to assess those penalties. So we're gonna shoot free throws, and we're gonna give the offended team the ball.
And John, a game without replay? Only if you have definite knowledge?
In a game without replay, you have to have knowledge. So you know, so think about it for a second. Like, so how do we have knowledge of the shot clock? Like, what are some things we can do to know, like, time in a shot clock? How about if you're working a 3-person game, every time when you're in the lead, every time you rotate, peek at the shot clock at the other end. Because if you don't peek, how are you going to know when you're locked down and you can't rotate if you don't have an idea as to how much time's on the shot clock? Whenever there's a try, especially when you're the off official on let's say a perimeter shot, comes from the trails primary, so now you're the center. Like, we need to have some awareness when the ball gets near the ring, whether it hits it or not. But again, these are things that we can do ourselves, that we don't necessarily need to use replay for. I mean, replay is a nice thing to have, but it's not something that we always need to use if we are that aware in our head. And you know, the officials who are at the top of their game, they can do all of these pieces. Like, if they walked into the gym and they were told, like, DV Sport is down, there's like a malfunction everywhere, we have no replay, they'll still referee a really good game, because they're that good at these pieces that they don't rely on replay. Like, replay may help confirm, but they don't really need to have it to be able to run the game. Take a look at L. Determine following the ruling of a contact foul by the officials whether an intentional or contact disqualifying foul occurred. Okay, so when officials rule a foul, the coach, you know, the officials may go on their own to determine whether they need to upgrade this or not. You know, or they rule an intentional foul. They can go to replay to determine whether it is an intentional foul. Maybe they want to go up, but maybe they realize after looking at it that it wasn't as bad as they initially thought. They can go down to a personal foul. The only thing to keep in mind with this, if they call a foul and they see that there was no contact, not that there was no foul, big difference, that there was no contact, they can take the foul away. You know, a player like swung and whiffed, and they ruled a foul, and now they're going to look to see if it should be an upgrade, and they see that there was no contact whatsoever, they can take the foul away. Officials may also use replay if they made a mistake and they did not see an intentional or contact disqualifying foul. They may use replay. But what they can't do, so let's say they go to replay and they see that there was illegal contact, but it was neither intentional nor disqualifying. They cannot assess a personal foul. So in that situation, it's got to be the big one. It's got to be one of those two big fouls. It can't be the guppy in the fishbowl. They can't come out with a personal foul. Sometimes officials lose the fouler. and replay is permitted to be used to determine who a foul should be assessed to when there's uncertainty. Listen, happens to everybody. It does happen, okay? And the officials have until the ball becomes live for the next quarter or overtime to be able to review. So let's say it happens late in the first quarter. You know, you report the foul and now all of a sudden, like you get in, like the quarter ends and there's a lot of buzzing going on. Like, hey, John, 53 didn't commit that foul, 55 did. So long as the ball doesn't become live to start the second quarter, you can go use replay to determine who the foul should be, who it should be charged to. Determine whether a player faked being fouled, and faking being fouled is a big thing nowadays. Okay, you know, because we're talking about flopping and faking as being a point of emphasis. And you can't just go to replay to see if somebody faked. However, you can penalize somebody for faking. You can assess a player substitute technical foul to a player who faked being fouled, but only as part of a replay review to determine whether an intentional or contact disqualifying foul occurred. And I already know there's an editorial revision in this because I didn't get the monitor. So don't say it, Sherry. You're smiling. I know you want to, but I'm going to beat you to it. So you go to replay. Rebounder swung their elbow and the official ruled a foul. Now they're going to look to see, should it be intentional, should it be contact disqualifying? And they see that the elbow never hit the player, never hit the opponent. If you believe that the player faked being fouled, which means you really need to have a little bit of evidence, they go and hold their mouth, for example. That would be evidence. If there was no contact whatsoever, then you can assess a player substitute technical foul to the opponent. Now, if the player just pulled their head away, you have to be smart about this. Like, if the player doesn't move their head away, do they lose 4 teeth? So was it faking or was it self-preservation? In the case of just pulling the head away, I would tend to believe that is preservation of the teeth. That, like, you know, who knows? The parents may have spent thousands of dollars on braces for that player. You know, they want to keep the pearly whites nice for mom and dad. But if that player goes like this, you know, which now is telling you what? I got hit in the mouth, but they didn't. That's a technical foul. Likewise, replay can be used to penalize players or bench personnel who commit an act of physical misconduct, but only as part of a replay review. Again, you're at replay for a possible intentional or contact disqualifying foul, and you see a physical act of misconduct. So what does that mean? Well, number one, you can't use any audio, and you can't read lips. So if somebody called an opponent a blankety blank, you can't read lips and give them a technical foul. However, if they threw the ball at them, that's a physical act. You can see somebody throwing a ball and hitting somebody with it. That is a physical act of misconduct. That's a technical foul. Okay, or somebody who they do one of these in somebody's face. That's a physical act of misconduct that you can penalize with a technical foul. Q, determine whether a foul occurred before a shot clock violation. And that's the second one where we said the foul occurs based on the illegal contact. You know, did the illegal contact occur before the shot clock violation? Remember, by rule, a shot clock period ends when the horn sounds. But with replay, if the horn is not audible, then you use the reading of 0 on the shot clock. So those are all permissive ones. How much time do I have? Because I don't want to abuse my time. And I do have questions from people. Kerry sent me questions.
Okay, so we are at 9:30 already.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know, it's great. So.
Can I do some of the questions that Kerry sent?
Yeah,
me?
let's do that. That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
We usually go to 9:30, but this is awesome, John. I mean, we're all
Yeah.
here learning, so
Yep.
take your time, please.
I'm having fun. So,
We
okay.
are
So
too.
let me look at Kerry's question. So, do all games at all levels have replay? No. No. And replay is a permissive rule. There is no requirement that anybody have replay. What we tend to see in Division II and Division III is that, like maybe on the conference championship game, or like the conference semis and finals, they may have replay because the games are being, they're streaming it out and they bring in like a production company to do it, and so they also want the schools to kind of get used to it, because in the NCAA tournament, like particularly Division II, they have replay. They use media timeouts and they have replay. So in Section 3, Article 1, E and H. So I'm going to scroll to the rule book. Actually, I'm going to scroll to the rule book. Okay, so it says, well, what if you don't have electronic media timeouts? Well, in E, because determining whether a goal, the value of a goal, falls under correctable error. So if you have a game that does not have, if you don't have media timeouts in a game, then you have the correctable error window for E. In H, you have to go right away. You have to go before the ball becomes live, because you don't have the media timeout piece. That's a great question. In Section 3, Article 1Q, does the foul get penalized if the shot clock violation, I'm guessing, occurs prior to the foul? So if let's say you go to replay, you determine that the shot clock violation occurred before the foul. If the foul was personal, then there is no foul. However, if the foul is technical, intentional, or disqualifying, those fouls always get penalized. They never get canceled. So you would still penalize those fouls. But if it's just a personal foul, there's no personal foul, you have a shot clock violation. In Section 4, Article 1N, so that's, well, 11.4 is coaches' appeals. That I remember. If they have no timeouts available remaining, is it a technical foul? Yes. So coaches can appeal even if they have no timeouts left, but they do so at great risk. If they're wrong, then it's an administrative technical foul for an excessive timeout. The opponents will get 2 free throws, and the opponents will be awarded the ball for a throw-in at the point of interruption. In the tip document that I shared, maybe I didn't share it. He mentioned about hand checking the first thing. He said, call every single one. Why is this? All right, so I don't know what got distributed, but I can answer this question anyway. Why is this, and I'm assuming I'm he, so important? Does he think different level would be different significant? Here's what I can tell you about Rule 10.10.5, contact on the ball handler dribbler. This became a rule in the 2013-2014 seasons. That was my last year refereeing. That year, scoring across all 3 divisions went up about 5 points per game per team. It allowed ball handlers to move without being bumped, knocked about, manhandled, or person handled, and it was bad. Like, we had athletes who couldn't do what they're talented enough to do because more physical teams were taking them out of their game, and officials were inconsistent with calling fouls. So this came from the Division I Oversight Committee at that time. This was something they wanted, the Women's Oversight Committee. And so what were guidelines in the back of the book went into the rule book. And every rule is important, but this one so much so because you don't have to think about it. If a defender touches the dribbler with two hands at the same time, blow your whistle, call a foul. If they hot stove touch them, that quick touch, if they touch them again with either hand, call a foul. If they put a hand on and don't take it off, call a foul. And if they put an arm bar that has any daylight between the torso and the arm, so it's not a collapsed one where my arm is against my body. If I put an arm bar on any part of the dribbler, blow your whistle, call a foul. They're easy. They really are. And coaches now understand, like most coaches, if you call that foul, they yell at their kid. I told you to keep your hands off. Like when this rule first came in, it was like, oh, is it going to be that tonight? Well, yeah, it's the rule. Yes, it's going to be that tonight. But now they've bought in. But when we don't call it, that's when my phone rings as a coordinator, when we don't call those fouls. In the last 59 seconds with tight games, which game is the most memorable and why? Any recommendations or tips to work on the last minute? Every game is different. I don't think I could even think of like what my most memorable, like really, really close game was. In the last minute, the most important thing is to over communicate with your partners. Take advantage of timeouts that the teams use to come together. It might only be 5 seconds. You can't imagine the number of ways a game can change in 5 seconds, from the score to foul situations to throw-in spots. The game, it continually changes. So it's important to use those timeouts. You don't have to talk for the whole timeout. And it's not just, you okay? Yeah. You okay? Yeah. And then that's it. Talk about your situation. Talk about, like, let's anticipate the play that they might run, but let's not anticipate our ruling. We want to anticipate that they're going to try and get the ball into the low post, but let's not anticipate that somebody may travel, or there's going to be a post foul, or there's going to be a block charge play. Let's let the plays happen and make our decision. But at least if we can kind of anticipate, if they're going to foul, we all think they're going to foul. Well, maybe they're going to trap first and then foul. So what we don't want to do is, like, we go into a trap and we call a foul on a kid who did nothing wrong because we anticipated that they were going to foul, but really they were trying to trap and maybe get a 5-second count. The biggest mistake that I ever made was I don't remember what year it was. Long time ago. I was working a game at Mount St. Mary's up in Newburgh, Division III game. And it was late in the game, and I thought I saw a player take a swing. And I ejected her for fighting. And replayed, the video did not back it up. So not only did I not go to that school for about 5 years until the coach saw me at one of these, like, Skyline versus NJAC All-Star games. And he goes, "Where have you been? I haven't seen you." And that's what got me back when I told the coordinator. It was like, "By the way, Randy asked where I've been." He goes, "Okay, you can go back." But that year it cost me going to the Division III NCAA tournament. So that is probably the biggest mistake I ever made, because I should have trusted my partners who were in a much better position than I was on that play. That's probably the biggest mistake I ever made. A couple of tips I want to share to deal with a coach. So here's what I say about coaches, at the college level. Like, this is their job. Like, I think we have to have an understanding that there are very few of us, very few in the officiating community that all they do is referee for a living. Like, that's not a big, if you look at the entire collegiate basketball officiating community, it's not a very big percentage of people that this is the only thing that they do. They may not do anything during the season, but after the season, they might work. I know people who work at golf clubs, and they have things to do in the off season. Very few just live off their officiating income. But for the coaches, this is their job. So they're allowed to be mad. They're allowed to disagree with your rulings, that they can't get personal. So it's, we're a service industry. So, think about when you go to a restaurant and the person who's tending to your table. How are they with you? Like, how do you want them to be with you? Like, you want them, they'll talk to you, they'll offer you, the specials, you ask them for a recommendation, they'll recommend, dishes on the menu. Like, we need to talk with the coaches. When they ask you a question, answer them honestly. And you know what? If you kicked it, tell them you kicked it. If you tell them 25 times that you kicked the call, that's not good. But be honest and tell them. And listen, we often will tell officials like some cliche lines to use. The coaches are catching on. We need to come up with some new material. Be honest with them and acknowledge them. Like, if they may make a statement, it may not be a question, it may be a statement. Let them know you heard. Let them know that you heard them, because that's what they really want to be acknowledged. I asked my coaches, Jimmy told you at the beginning, I have 5 conferences across all 3 divisions, like 49 schools. Whenever I ask my coaches, who would you rather have on a game? 95% call accuracy, but the person doesn't talk to you, they ignore you, they have an ego, and they can't be bothered. Or the 88 to 90% call accuracy, but they acknowledge you, they work with you, not that they kiss your tail, but it's a two-way conversation. I have never had a coach who wanted the first person. They all want the second one. If we're going to grow women's collegiate basketball, we need to get this animosity. And listen, part of this is a coach's issue where they're so, how they talk to the officials needs to be addressed. But you know what? If officials don't deal with that behavior and assess technical fouls, then they're gonna think it's okay to do all the time. But if we're gonna grow the game, we need to see that we are not antagonistic. Officials make mistakes. I made more than enough mistakes for everybody on this call. I made more than enough mistakes. Okay, we are going to make mistakes. We need to own them. We need to own them, and we need to learn from them. Like, if you ever have a chance to watch game film, don't watch your film to validate the decisions you made. Watch the film and honestly critique. And so let's say you got the play right. Why did you get it right? Were you in the right place, or were you lucky? Were you lucky? Like, sometimes we get plays right, but we're in the wrong spot. When we're in the right place, we're accurate. We're accurate far more often than when we're not. And the book that tends to be forgotten, and let me just stop sharing so I can see people. Yeah, that's better. That's much nicer. The book that nobody spends enough time on is the CCA manual. Like, everybody's in the rule book, which is great. As the secretary rules editor, I like that. I like to know that you're in the rule book, right? And we're in the case book. And by the way, the case book gives examples. It does not give every possibility for every single rule in the book, because otherwise you'd get a hernia if you tried to pick the thing up. It just doesn't work that way. And if you know the rules, and if you have an understanding of the rules and how they're applied, we now have a fundamental list in the back of the rule book, appendix 7 or 8, right? And it's basketball fundamentals. if you know the fundamentals, maybe you don't know the exact rule, but you got a better than average shot at getting a play right if you understand the fundamentals. But we spend a lot of time in those two books, but then the CCA manual, like the spine barely gets cracked on the book. We need to be better. We need to be more technically sound, because when we're in the right place for the play. And then the chances of our call accuracy will increase when we're in the right place. I think that's like that's off Kerry's list. So, I mean, if anybody has any questions, you know I went long, but I'm from Jersey. We know how to talk.
Does anybody have questions for John?
Yes, I got one more from Anthony. Give me 1 second. Let me pull it up. John, Anthony would like to know, what advice would you have for our students after they continue this class to continue to pursue their career in college officiating?
Okay, so you know the reality is that if you're looking to get hired into a college conference, you've got to go to camp. Now, that having been said, like if you've never worked a college game in your life, I probably would not go to like the Big Ten camp. I would like, that's not what you're looking for. Like you'll learn, but that's not like, you'll learn. It's been very rare for me to go to a camp, and I go to a lot of, most years I travel to a lot of camps. I'll spend like 30 days at all these different camps. You want to go to camp to learn. Now, coordinators hire out of their camps. Go to learn, be a sponge, ask questions, keep a diary. Like when you go to camp, bring a little notebook, write everything down. When you have your post game with the clinician and your crew, write everything down. Because you don't want to forget. Like you may get great tips, and then 2 weeks later, oh, what did Sherry say to me? And you forgot. So write everything down, but don't go trying to get hired. Because when you go out and referee, like it happens all the time. Like I try to hide when I'm at camps. I try not to really let people know that I'm watching them, because I know what happens. They'll press. They try to do things that they hadn't done all game, but now like John's there. Don't worry about John. Don't worry about any of us. Go referee. And if you go and you treat those games like they're regular games, don't treat, the score could be 100-15 AAU game, right? Because the camp games can be a little, lopsided. Referee like it's a regular season game. Because as a coordinator, I want to know what you're going to do on a game for me if I were to assign you to a game. So like, are you fooling around, like doing like soccer moves with the basketball during a timeout, or you like BSing with the people in the stands, or don't do those things at all. That's like a turnoff. But go to learn and just referee the games like they count. Because if you press, again, you'll do things you wouldn't ordinarily do. And you should referee every game. You should referee every single game like there are three people sitting at the table. The person who assigned you the game, the person who's your mentor, and then the person who you want to work for. If you referee every single game like those three people are there, then when they show up, you won't do anything different. And with everything being on video today, I mean, case in point, Sherry, can I use you? So I think it was my first year. I think it was my first year as a coordinator. So it was my last year on the court. So it was like 13, 14. And Sherry, I think you were like at St. Joe's, Long Island, or Old Westbury or something. But like you and maybe Chuck, and I don't remember who the third was, but I'm watching Sherry's game online. And
Oh, yeah.
and when they got into the locker
Oh,
room,
my God.
they had a group text from me
Yes.
with like all these plays to look at.
Yeah.
With everything being right, Sherry?
Yes. Sunil Westbury.
Yep. With
No,
every,
no. That was Farmingdale. Farmingdale.
okay.
Yep.
I knew it was a Long Island school
Yep.
that I would never try and go to it for,
Right.
for 6 o'clock
Absolutely.
tip on the LIE. I know better.
Right.
So the truth is every game is on video.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever you work for can watch anything you do. So if you just referee like they're there, then if I show up in the gym, what's the big deal? Like you already have that practice. You're refereeing like John could see you anyway. So when John shows up,
Yep.
it's no big deal.
I remember.
Anybody else? I'm having fun. This is
Come
great.
on, somebody else gotta have a question. Don't be scared.
Go ahead, Will.
Will, you have one? I mean, this is the guy that writes our Bible. I mean, you have
I know
him.
Will. Will, you got one?
Unmute, Will, unmute. You're unmuted.
Muted, I swear.
You're muted again. All right, Will's having some technical difficulties. You good, Will?
Oh,
Uh-oh. I guess Will is good. There you go.
nothing.
He's
Okay.
having. If you have one, you want to put it in the chat, we can get it that way. In the meantime, anybody else?
Where's everybody from?
We have
Oh, here we go.
Kansas.
We got a couple of Kansases.
I see K-State. I see Becky with a K-State hoodie.
He is from New York. He is from New York, right? John, you're from where?
North Dakota.
South Dakota?
North Dakota.
North Dakota, sorry.
That's probably an insult out there if you say the wrong one, right?
Sorry. Alicia's from
I'm from Albany, New York.
Albany. Alicia's from Albany. Anthony, you're from Massachusetts?
No, New Jersey, Northwest New Jersey.
No, who's from Massachusetts? Oh, Rick. Rick is from Massachusetts. Yeah.
Okay.
Justin is New York and Schaborn is Pennsylvania.
Okay. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, they're from
And I
all
can't
over.
remember. G had to drop off the call, but I can't remember where she's from.
I don't remember either. But yeah, usually we have more than this. We have a few people missing tonight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
G wasn't feeling well. She dropped off.
Rich isn't here. Rick
Couldn't make
and
it.
Rich.
He had a IABO meeting. And I think there's more, but I can't think who it is.
Well, I appreciate the people who are here.
Yep.
And like I said, this was, I had a good time. This was good. I hope this was worthwhile to all of you giving up almost 90 minutes of your time.
Well, I hope this is not the last time that you will join us, John.
Oh, I'll be back.
Yes.
I'll be back.
You guys heard
We
him,
look forward
right?
to it.
You heard him say that, right?
Can't get rid of me that easily.
All right. That
It's
sounds-
recorded. I'll clip it and I'll send it to everybody.
Okay, good. Good. All right. Anything else, Carl?
Thank you, John. That was excellent. That was awesome.
Oh, you're welcome.
Definitely helped me understand replay a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to the next time I get a game that I have it on one of my games.
Yep,
Sounds good.
absolutely. Yep. So with, Will is calling in again. Okay. So we do not have class on Wednesday, right? We have it next Sunday. Carl?
Yep.
I believe that's
Sure,
right,
yeah.
right. And
Will, are you good now?
Yep, I'm good.
Did you have a question?
Yes.
John's still here.
Yeah,
Go for
so John, so like with the coaches, like replay now, like I've seen like are the coaches just allowed to like ask only like certain plays with like the replay challenge now?
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
We
so-
put that. Sorry, we
Yeah,
put a little. John had a little cheat sheet that we did put in our classroom. But go ahead, John. You can explain it. If
Yeah,
you'd like.
so coaches, well, first of all, I mean, we've had coaches appeals for a very long time, and not all of them require replay use. So like any of the correctable errors, replay use is permitted, but it's not required. Scoring, timing, AP arrow mistakes are appealable, but as I said earlier, you as an official cannot use replay for an AP arrow mistake. Coaches can appeal whether an intentional or contact disqualifying foul occurred. They can appeal the location of players involved in a restricted area or lower defensive box play. But what they can't appeal is if you rule, for example, that a defender obtained legal guarding position outside the restricted area and maintained it back in, and then there's the illegal contact and you rule an offensive foul, like you need to tell them that the defender obtained out and maintained back, because they can't appeal that. So that's not appealable. But if that's not an issue, just the defender obtained in the restricted area and you have this play, that they can appeal. And then they also appeal whether a goal should count when a foul is committed by or against a teammate of the shooter. Now that, which is a new piece this year, officials can use replay on their own in the last 2 minutes of the game, but at any time during the game, the coach could make that appeal. So like on an illegal screen, if you counted the basket and they say, wait, the ball was still in the shooter's hand when you called the foul, that's reviewable. But again, only when the shot goes in the basket.
Thank you everybody for tonight. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Will.
And I want to thank you again for having me. And I'm gonna have to go because I've got 2 crazy dogs that are now up here that are gonna cause all sorts of mayhem.
Thanks, John.
So I'm gonna say good
Thank
night.
you, John.
Everybody. Have a
Thanks.
Great season, and
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Good night.
night.
Okay, you have anything else, Carl?
Anybody have any questions? I know a few of you watched my game Saturday or maybe Sunday. Anything you want to discuss, or you don't want to discuss the RA plays that I put up?
Hey, Carl, I got just a quick question. John mentioned CCA manual.
Yes.
What is that? I've never.
It's the college women's, pretty much. It's the mechanics manual for the college women's game, and they have it for the men's too. If you Google pretty much what he said,
John has
CCA
it up.
women's basketball, that's it right there. If you Google CCA women's basketball CCA women's basketball book, it'll come up on different sites. It's no more than about $15. I think in your welcome email, Kerry mentioned if you register for Arbiter, with your fee when you register for Arbiter, they will actually send you the book. And along with that fee that you're paying to Arbiter, you'll actually have access to John and everything that he puts up on Arbiter as far as rule changes and ask John questions and stuff like that. But again, that's up to you. That's an additional fee that has nothing to do with our class. But like John said, you can find it on referee.com. Again, it's no more than, as a matter of fact, I'm looking at it right now, it's $15.95. It's worth the $15 investment if you want to really dive into three-person mechanics.
Okay. Thanks.
Anytime. Anything else? Nobody thought my RA play was wrong? Not any one of them? They were both right? I mean, they were, but that's not the point. All right, Sherry's getting restless. I think if that's all, we can end the class for tonight. And unless, like I said, if anybody wants to stay in chat, Sherry can go bye-bye, and I'll hang on. But if not, then have a good night, everybody. I know we ran long, but hey, having John, when you have John, John always goes over the time that you allot him, and it's awesome.
Okay, I'm gonna stop recording.